Dang, this is a lot more than I expected. Hold up. Before you go Googling or trying to find on Pinterest all different types of wedding budgets and trying to figure out how much to spend on your wedding, you have come to the right place. You can take a deep breath of relief, because in this video, I am going to be going over what to expect to spend on your wedding, different budget allocations, how to create your budget, and essentially how to figure out how much a wedding costs. Plus, I have a whole other playlist that can help you out with figuring out how everything costs, from flowers to cakes and everything in between with your wedding. So be sure to go check that out as well. Are you finally ready for some answers? But before anything else, I'm Scarlett, and I help everyday women like you overcome money and investing problems by providing down-to-earth guidance. It's like sitting down and chatting with your nerdy friend over some coffee. So prior to us going in and diving into wedding budgets, for those of you who are beginners, we need to talk about what a budget really even is. Essentially, planning a budget is when you have a certain set amount of money and you have different categories that you want to spend that money on. And you allocate money into each of these categories, making it so that you don't overspend your money. And what's really great is that throughout this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly how to be doing that on your own printable. So like I said, the point of a budget is to prevent you from overspending. Weddings, as we all know, are extremely expensive. So the fact that you want to learn about money really shows that you want to be intentional with your funds. So now that we briefed that over, I want to take you over to our wedding budget and talk about how the different allocations work and go over all the main categories that you need to have for your wedding budget. Alright, so in this portion of the video, I want to provide you with the information you need to allocate the most important categories for a wedding. So let's start with the big categories that you really just cannot miss. The first one is the venue. Now we start with the venue because, to be honest, that's typically everyone's largest expense. In fact, it ranges anywhere from about $2,000 to even $15,000. These are just averages, but a lot of people do budget around 40% of their budget toward their venue. Now, the next large expense that you need to be aware of is food. This is typically the second most expensive that people spend on. Now with this, you really can range a ton. I've seen anywhere from about $10 to even $70 per person, but realistically, an average is about $10 to $30 for your typical average wedding. And with this as well, you can look at allocating or budgeting around 40% of your budget toward this. Now do note that I have some awesome budgeting tips on this one, on the food, because I was able to feed everyone for around $6 for my wedding. And so if you'd like a video for that one, comment below and let me know. The next large expense we're looking at is media. So media, typically I'm talking about photos and videos. Now with photos, this ranges, but I usually saw when I did my research anywhere from around $1,500 to about $5,000 for photos. And then for videos itself, we saw right around $2,500 to about $7,000 for a videographer. With this one, you'll probably be looking at allocating around 15% of your budget. Another large expense that people have to overcome are the flowers. So in regard to the flowers, the average cost is typically around $5,000 for that. It all depends on the venue as well, and it depends on how many bridesmaids and many different factors. So if you want a video on that one, also comment below, because I definitely found a way around this for the flowers. And so with this one, typically allocate about 10% of your budget. If you're liking this video, help me help more women by smashing that like button and subscribing so that you can learn more and everything that you could ever know about your wedding budgets. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, so with all these categories so far, I want you to do your research for what you may want for your wedding. Then be sure to write down the average prices that you find. Remember that everyone's budget is going to look different. Be sure to use all these numbers as a guide for your official wedding budget. So let's go through some more wedding budget categories that you're going to need to consider going through to research with your family and your fiance. So another category that we're going to need to make sure you look at is in regard to the ceremony. This can look very different in regard to how your officiant, the decorations, the arch, unity ceremony, and more. But a lot of people do end up budgeting around 3 to 5%. One of the next ones we're going to need is the reception. Now the reception does have a few of these intertwined with it, but in regard to the reception, it may be a separate venue, it may be something totally different. Now, unfortunately, I really don't have enough time in this video to go over everything for the reception budget, but of course, comment down below if you'd like me to do a budget breakdown for the reception, because that would be a fun one. But for now, be sure to research DJs, bands, centerpieces, photo booths, and anything else that your Pinterest is telling you to buy. Another one you have to be looking at is alcohol. Alcohol is typically a huge expense if you don't budget for it. A lot of times it ranges around $2,300 for a typical classic wedding. And then another large expense for the reception is the cake itself. So the cake typically isn't too bad, but sometimes it takes people by surprise. It's around $500 on average for a typical cake for around 150 to 200 people. Another expense to be aware of is your wedding dress itself. So the wedding dress sometimes will range anywhere from the cheap end of $500 to a more expensive end of around $5,000. Next, we have all the invitations and stationery. With this one, you could allocate around 3%. It actually can get really pricey because you need potentially the invitations, your rack cards. So do really keep an eye out on this one. It's not just the invitations, but also all the stationery. These are envelopes, stamps. I mean, can include a ton. So really do your research on what you need to actually have for all of your stationery. Next are your decorations. This ranges hugely, okay? So this is something you need to budget for, but I don't even have anything in regard to your notes for this one because it can range like crazy. So we can be talking about multiple $100s or multiple thousands of dollars for decorations. Let's go into a few other ones. For your groom, the groom's attire typically is around $250 to even about $1,000 for your typical suit and shoes and belt, tie, and all that. And then another one that's really important, of course, are all the bridesmaids. Now with this one, it does range as well, but I found that it's about $150 to around $400 per bridesmaid. So with this one, it could include like buying their dress if you buy their dress and having a gift and their jewelry, for example. Now, it's really important to keep in mind that there are so many small budget items that you're likely going to miss. That's why I put together another video, a more extensive video that goes over all the small details that you don't want to miss. These are the details that go within the budget categories that we just talked about. You really don't want to mess up your budget by missing all of these small items. So go check out that video right now.